The stars looked different out here in the dark space between systems. Commander Vexthul had been traveling these empty regions for over 20 years, but something about this particular void made his skin crawl. His ship, the Silent Wind, moved through the asteroid field like a ghost, its sensors reaching out into the black looking for anything worth reporting back to the Confederation. "Sir, we have something," called out Science Officer Kethrin from his station. His voice carried that tone that meant he had found something big. "Long-range sensors are picking up a massive object. It appears to be artificial." Vexthul moved to the center of the bridge, his forearms working the controls with practiced ease. The main screen flickered to life, showing a grainy image of something huge floating among the rocks. It was clearly a ship, but unlike anything in their databases. "How big?" Vexthul asked. 3 kilometers long, maybe more. It's just sitting there, sir. No power signatures, no heat, no movement. Looks completely dead." The alien commander studied the image. The ship was angular, brutal-looking, with what appeared to be weapon ports scattered along its hull like scars. It reminded him of the old war vessels from the ancient conflicts, but this was clearly from a species they had never encountered. "Any signs of life?" "Nothing, sir. If there was ever a crew aboard, they're long gone now." 3 kilometers away, hidden in the shadow of the human battleship USS Thunder Bay, Commander Jake Morrison sat perfectly still in his command chair. His eyes were closed, but his mind was wide awake. The neural link connecting him to his crew buzzed with quiet activity as they maintained the illusion of a dead ship. "Sir," whispered Captain Lisa Brooks through the neural connection, "they're taking the bait. Alien vessel is moving closer." Morrison smiled without opening his eyes. "Excellent. How many crew members are they reading?" "0, sir. Our biodampeners are working perfectly. They think we're a ghost ship." The plan had been simple in concept but complex in execution. The Thunder Bay and her crew had been waiting in this asteroid field for 3 weeks, playing dead. Intelligence had suggested that Confederation scout ships regularly passed through this region, and Command wanted to know more about these aliens who claimed to represent a galactic government. The best way to learn about someone was to let them think they were studying you. Back on the Silent Wind, Vexthul was getting excited. Finding a derelict ship from an unknown species was the kind of discovery that could make a career. The Confederation was always hungry for information about new civilizations, especially ones that built ships this large. "Take us closer," he ordered. "I want a full spectrum analysis of that hull. Material composition, energy signatures, everything." "Sir, should we report this to Command first?" asked his navigation officer. "Not yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first." Could be nothing more than an old cargo hauler that got lost. But even as he said it, Vexthul knew that wasn't true. The ship's design spoke of military purpose. Every line, every angle looked designed for war. The question was, war against what? On the Thunder Bay, Chief Engineer Ryan Kelly monitored the alien approach from his position deep in the ship's core. Around him, the most advanced technology humanity had ever created hummed quietly in standby mode. Fusion reactors that could power entire cities sat cold and dark. Weapon systems that could crack planets waited for the word to activate. "They're scanning us," he reported through the neural link. "Basic stuff so far, just trying to figure out what we're made of." Morrison's mental voice came back calm and steady. "Let them look. Make sure all our good toys stay hidden." The human ship had been designed with this exact scenario in mind. Every system had multiple modes of operation. Right now, they were running on backup power that made them look like they were built with primitive technology. The aliens would see steel and titanium, basic fusion drives, and simple computer systems. They wouldn't see the quantum processors, the antimatter containment fields, or the weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics. Navigation Officer Amy Chen tracked the alien ship as it moved closer. Through her enhanced sensors, she could see 17 more human vessels hiding in nearby asteroid fields and behind small moons. The entire Fifth Fleet was here, invisible to alien sensors, waiting for the trap to be sprung. "Distance to target?" Morrison asked. 2 kilometers and closing, sir. They're being very careful." "Of course they are. They think they've found a treasure. Let's not disappoint them." Aboard the Silent Wind, the initial scans were coming back, and they were confusing. The ship appeared to be built with materials that were common throughout the galaxy, but there was something odd about the construction. The hull was thicker than necessary, and there were strange gaps and spaces that didn't make sense for a simple cargo or transport vessel. "Sir," Keithrin called out, "I'm reading some kind of internal structure that doesn't match any known ship design. It's like they built multiple ships inside one hull." "Interesting. Can you get more detail?" "I'll need to do a deep scan, sir. Really probe into their systems." Vexthul considered this. Deep scans were more invasive and could potentially be detected if anyone was still alive over there, but the ship appeared completely dead, and the potential intelligence value was enormous. "Do it. I want to know everything about these people." Morrison felt the change in the alien scanning immediately. Where before they had been gently probing his ship's outer layers, now they were drilling deep into its systems. His smile grew wider. "Sir," Lisa Brooks reported, "they're doing a full, deep scan. They're about to get the surprise of their lives." "Let them see what we want them to see, nothing more, nothing less." The Thunder Bay's computer systems began feeding carefully prepared false data to the alien sensors. They would see weapons, but not the real ones. They would see technology, but not humanity's best technology. They would see a military vessel, but not the true scope of human military capability. What they were about to discover would change everything. As the scan continued, Morrison opened his eyes for the first time in hours. Around him, his crew maintained their positions, looking like corpses floating in a dead ship. But beneath the surface, every system was ready to spring to life at a moment's notice. The trap was set. The aliens had taken the bait. Now came the fun part. The deep scan began slowly, like fingers reaching into the dark heart of the human ship. Science Officer Keithrin watched his instruments with growing excitement as data flowed across his screens. This was what he lived for, the moment when an unknown vessel gave up its secrets. "Initial readings are coming in now, sir," he reported to Commander Vexthul. "Hull composition is mostly iron-based alloys with titanium reinforcement, primitive but effective." Vexthul nodded. Most young species used similar materials when they first reached space, nothing surprising there. "What about their power systems?" "Fusion-based, sir." "Again, very basic. The reactors appear to be offline, probably have been for some time." Keithrin paused as new data scrolled past. "Wait, that's odd. What is it?" "The power distribution network is far more complex than it should be for a simple fusion system. There are conduits running to sections of the ship that don't appear to serve any obvious function." On the Thunder Bay, Chief Engineer Ryan Kelly smiled as he watched the alien scan probe deeper into their systems. The humans had spent months preparing for this moment, building false readings into every system. The aliens were seeing exactly what humanity wanted them to see, no more and no less. "They're buying it completely," Kelly reported through the neural link. "Reading our backup fusion plants as our main power source. They have no idea what's really down here." Commander Morrison's mental voice was calm but pleased. "Excellent. Let them dig deeper. Time to show them something that will get their attention." Kelly's fingers moved across his controls, gradually allowing the alien scan to penetrate further into the ship's systems. Layer by layer, he revealed the Thunder Bay's secrets, each one more shocking than the last. Back on the Silent Wind, Keithrin's excitement was turning into confusion, and confusion was rapidly becoming concern. The deeper his scan went, the more wrong everything seemed. The ship's computer systems alone made no sense. "Sir," he called out, his voice tight with worry. "I'm reading processing power that shouldn't be possible. Their computer core is showing quantum processing speeds that exceed our own ship's capabilities." Vexthul frowned. "That can't be right. Check your instruments." "I've run the scan 3 times, sir. The readings are consistent. These people have computer technology that's decades ahead of ours." The alien commander moved to stand behind his science officer, studying the readouts. Himself, what he saw made his blood run cold. The scan was revealing layer after layer of technology that should not exist in a ship built by a primitive species. "What about their weapons?" Vexthul asked, though he was beginning to dread the answer. Keithrin's hands shook as he accessed the weapon scan data. Sir, you need to see this. What I initially read as simple kinetic weapons are actually railgun systems. But the power, requirements, and acceleration capabilities are beyond anything in our database. How far beyond? Sir, according to these readings, they can accelerate projectiles to 15% of light speed. At that velocity, a simple metal slug would have the impact force of a nuclear weapon. Vexthul felt his four hearts beginning to race. 15% of light speed was theoretical maximum for kinetic weapons according to Confederation science. No civilized species had ever built weapons that powerful, because they were considered too dangerous to exist. On the Thunder Bay, Weapons Officer Brad Williams was enjoying the show. Through the ship's sensors, he could monitor the alien crew's growing panic as they discovered more and more of humanity's military capabilities. Sir, he reported to Morrison, they just found our railgun systems. Based on their bio readings, I'd say they're having the appropriate reaction. Good, Morrison replied. Show them the missile systems next. Let's see how they handle that. Williams made a small adjustment to the ship's scanner shields, allowing the alien probe to reach the Thunder Bay's missile bays. He grinned as he imagined the aliens' reaction to what they were about to discover. Kethrin nearly fell out of his chair when the missile bay scans came through. Commander, we have a serious problem. Their missile systems are using antimatter, warheads. Antimatter? Vexthul couldn't hide the fear in his voice. That's impossible. Antimatter containment for weapons is theoretically impossible. The power requirements alone would destroy any ship trying to carry such weapons. Sir, they're not just carrying antimatter weapons, they have hundreds of them. And the containment fields are stable. I don't understand how they're doing it, but the math doesn't lie. The bridge of the Silent Wind fell silent except for the hum of their instruments. Every officer present understood what they were looking at. A single antimatter warhead could destroy their entire ship. This alien vessel was carrying enough firepower to level a small moon, but the scan wasn't finished. As Kethrin continued to probe deeper into the human ship's systems, each new discovery was more terrifying than the last. The medical bay contained biological research labs with samples of diseases that could wipe out entire species. The communication array was designed not just for talking, but for psychological warfare that could drive enemy crews insane. Even the food production systems had been modified to create chemical weapons. Sir? Kethrin whispered, his voice barely audible. This isn't just a warship. Every single system on this vessel has been designed for warfare. They've weaponized everything, even their life support systems. Communications Officer Kate Davis, hidden on the Thunder Bay, was monitoring every transmission from the alien ship. She could hear the growing terror in their voices as they discovered more and more of humanity's military innovations. Sir, she reported to Morrison, their crew is starting to panic. I'm picking up transmissions about contacting their home fleet. Let them, Morrison replied. In fact, make sure they get a clear signal. I want their friends to know exactly what they found. Navigation Officer Amy Chen was tracking the 17 other human ships positioned throughout the system. Each one was running the same stealth protocols as the Thunder Bay, appearing dead and harmless while actually being fully combat-ready. Sir, she reported, the rest of the fleet is ready to move on your command. Should I signal them to begin Phase 2? Not yet, Morrison said. Let our alien friends finish their scan first. I want them to get the complete picture before we introduce ourselves properly. Back on the Silent Wind, Commander Vexthul was staring at his screens in horror. The scan had revealed a ship that was less a vessel and more a mobile weapon of mass destruction. Everything about the human design spoke of a species that didn't just wage war, but had elevated warfare to an art form. How many crew members would it take to operate a ship like this, he asked. Kethrin checked his readings. Based on the system complexity, at least 3,000 highly trained individuals. But sir, there's something else. The ship's design suggests that every crew member is cross-trained in weapons systems. They're not just sailors, they're all soldiers. Vexthul closed his eyes and tried to think. His mission was to scout and report on unknown species, not to make first contact with what appeared to be the galaxy's most dangerous military force. But it was too late to run now. The scan was almost complete, and soon they would know everything, about this mysterious human vessel. What he didn't know was that the humans already knew everything about him. The deeper scan continued, and Science Officer Catherine wished it would stop. Each new system he discovered on the human ship made his species' most advanced warships look like children's toys. But the worst was yet to come. "Sir," he called out, to Commander Vexithul, his voice shaking. "I'm reading something in their cargo bays that doesn't make sense." "What now?" Vexithul asked, though he dreaded the answer. Nothing about this ship made sense anymore. They appear to be carrying manufacturing equipment, sir, but not normal manufacturing. They have factories for producing weapons, ammunition, and... Catherine paused, double-checking his readings. "Sir, they have entire production lines for building more ships." The bridge of the silent wind fell silent. A warship that could build more warships was beyond anything in Confederation experience. Most species built their vessels in massive orbital shipyards that took years to construct. These humans had somehow miniaturized the entire process and put it inside a single ship. "How? Is that possible?" Vexthul whispered. "I don't know, sir, but according to these scans, they could theoretically build a small fleet while traveling between star systems. They're not just warriors, they're a mobile invasion force." On the Thunder Bay, Strategic Operations Officer Nick Foster was monitoring the alien reactions with professional interest. The humans had designed their ship specifically to terrify anyone who scanned it deeply enough. Every system had been built not just for efficiency, but for psychological warfare. "Sir," he reported to Commander Morrison through the neural link, "they just discovered our mobile shipyards. Their stress indicators are off the charts." Morrison's mental voice carried a hint of satisfaction. "Excellent. Show them the colony." "Pods next." Foster made the adjustment, allowing the alien scan to penetrate the Thunder Bay's lower decks. What the aliens were about to discover would push them over the edge. Catherine's hands were shaking so badly now that he could barely operate his controls. The human ship kept revealing new horrors with each passing minute. "Commander, there's more. They have what appear to be colonization equipment aboard." "Colonization equipment? On a warship?" "Yes, sir. Habitat modules, terraforming equipment, genetic banks. It's like they're prepared to not just conquer planets, but to completely reshape them and populate them with their own species." Vexthul felt sick. The picture that was emerging was of a species that didn't just wage war, but planned for total domination. They could arrive in a system, destroy all resistance, build more ships, terraform planets, and establish colonies, all with a single vessel. But the scan wasn't finished. As Catherine continued to probe the human ship's deepest systems, he discovered something that made everything else pale in comparison. "Sir," he whispered, "I'm detecting something in their central core that I don't understand. The energy signatures are unlike anything I've ever seen." "What kind of energy signatures?" "They appear to be manipulating space-time itself, sir. I think they have some kind of faster-than-light communication system that doesn't rely on hyperspace relays." This was impossible. Instantaneous communication across any distance was purely theoretical. Even the Confederation's most advanced science teams had only managed to prove it was mathematically possible, not actually build working systems. On the Thunder Bay, Communications Officer Kate Davis smiled as she monitored the alien transmissions. The aliens were discovering humanity's quantum entanglement communication network, which allowed instant contact with Earth and every other human ship in the galaxy. "Sir," she reported to Morrison, "they just found our quantum comm system. I think we've officially broken their understanding of physics." "Good," Morrison replied. "Now show them what we use it for." Davis made a small adjustment to their communication shielding. The alien scan would now be able to detect not just the existence of their quantum communication system, but some of the traffic flowing through it. Catherine nearly fainted when the communication data started flowing across his screens. "Commander, they're in contact with hundreds of ships, not just in this system but spread across the entire galaxy." "How many ships?" Vexthul asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "Thousands, sir. Maybe tens of thousands. And they're all coordinating with each other in real time." This isn't just one ship, it's part of a massive fleet that spans multiple star systems. The alien bridge crew stared at their instruments in stunned silence. They had thought they were examining a single derelict vessel. Instead, they had discovered that they were surrounded by an invisible armada that could coordinate attacks across the entire galaxy simultaneously. But there was still more. As the scan reached the deepest levels of the human ship's systems, Catherine discovered something that challenged everything the Confederation thought they knew about warfare. "Sir," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "they have artificial intelligence systems controlling their weapons. AI weapon systems? That's forbidden by every civilized species in the galaxy. Not just forbidden, sir. These AI systems are learning. They're analyzing our ship, our weapons, our tactics, and developing countermeasures in real time. They're not just smart, they're getting smarter every second we stay here." Aboard the Thunder Bay, the ship's primary AI, a system the humans simply called Atlas, was indeed learning everything it could about the alien vessel. In the few minutes since the scan began, Atlas had analyzed every aspect of Confederation technology and developed 47 different ways to defeat their defenses. Chief Engineer Ryan Kelly monitored Atlas with professional pride. "Sir," he reported to Morrison, "our AI has completed its analysis of their ship. Atlas could disable their vessel in approximately 37 seconds using any of 12 different methods." "Noted," Morrison replied. "But we're not here to fight. We're here to make friends." The irony was not lost on Kelly. Humanity's idea of making friends apparently involved terrifying potential allies into submission first. Back on the Silent Wind, the final scan results were coming in, and they painted a picture that made Vexthul's worst nightmares seem pleasant by comparison. The human ship wasn't just a warship, it was a mobile civilization designed for conquest on a galactic scale. "Final report," Catherine said, his voice hollow with shock. "The vessel carries sufficient firepower to destroy a small fleet, manufacturing capability to build more ships, colonization equipment to establish permanent settlements, communication systems that span the galaxy, and artificial intelligence that surpasses our best computers." Vexthul closed his eyes. In other words, a single human ship could conquer and hold an entire star system indefinitely. "Yes, sir. And based on their communication traffic, they have thousands of these ships." The alien commander opened his eyes and looked at his crew. Every face showed the same expression of terror and disbelief. They had set out to catalog a primitive species and instead had discovered the galaxy's ultimate predator. "Sir," his navigation officer called out, "should we retreat and report to Confederation Command?" Vexthul considered this. Running might be the smart move, but something told him it was already too late. If the humans had wanted to destroy them, they would have done it already. The fact that they were still alive suggested the humans had other plans. "No," he said quietly. "I think they already know we're here. I think they've known all along." As if summoned by his words, every system on the Silent Wind suddenly detected the same thing. The human ship, which had appeared dead and cold for hours, was powering up. Lights were coming online throughout its massive hull, and energy readings were climbing rapidly. The trap was about to be sprung. The human ship came alive all at once. Lights blazed across its 3-kilometer hull like stars being born. Power readings spiked so high that the Silent Wind's instruments couldn't measure them properly. What had seemed like a dead Hulk moments, before now hummed with energy that made space itself vibrate. Commander Vexthul watched in horror as his instruments showed the impossible. The human vessel was generating more power than his entire home fleet combined. Weapon systems that had been hidden were coming online one by one, each more terrifying than the last. "Sir," Science Officer Catherine called out, his voice cracking with fear. "They're targeting us. I count 17 different weapon locks on our ship." "17?" Vexthul asked. "No, sir, sorry. 23 now. The number keeps going up." On the bridge of the Thunder Bay, Commander Jake Morrison opened his eyes and stretched like a man waking from a pleasant nap. Around him, his crew maintained their positions but were no longer pretending to be dead. The charade was over. "Good morning, everyone," Morrison said calmly. I trust everyone enjoyed their rest? Captain Lisa Brooks smiled from her position at the tactical station. Very much, sir. Our guests have been quite thorough in their examination of our ship. Excellent. Communications, open a channel to our alien friends. Communications officer. Kate Davis nodded and activated the ship's external communication array. Channel open, sir. Morrison stood up from his command chair and walked to the center of the bridge. When he spoke, his voice was calm and friendly, the tone of someone greeting old friends. Greetings, crew of the Silent Wind. I am Commander Jake Morrison of the Terran Defense Fleet representing the United Earth Government. Thank you for your detailed scan of our vessel. We found it quite educational. On the alien bridge, the words, hit like a physical blow. They had been caught. The humans had been awake and aware the entire time, watching them, learning from them, studying them just as thoroughly as they had been studying the human ship. How did you know our ship's name? Vexthul managed to ask. Morrison's voice carried a hint of amusement. The same way we know that you are Commander Vexthul of the Galactic Confederation 4th Scout Fleet. The same way we know that your home base is located in the Kepler 442 system. The same way we know that your fleet consists of 47 scout ships, 12 light cruisers, and 3 dreadnoughts. The alien commander felt his blood turn to ice. That's impossible. That information is classified at the highest levels. Nothing is impossible, Commander. While you were scanning our ship, we were scanning yours. Your computer security is quite good by galactic standards, but we have had a long time to practice breaking into secure systems. Strategic Operations Officer Nick Foster had spent the last 3 hours dissecting every piece of information flowing through the alien ship's computers. The Confederation's security might be advanced, but it wasn't, designed to stop intrusion methods that treated computer warfare as a legitimate branch of military science. Sir, Foster reported to Morrison through the neural link, I have complete tactical data on their entire fleet, including deployment schedules and patrol routes. Excellent work, Morrison replied mentally, then continued speaking aloud to the aliens. I hope you don't mind, but we also took the liberty of examining your stellar cartography databases. Very impressive maps, by the way. We particularly enjoyed learning about the locations of your colonies and military installations. Vexthul's 4 hearts were racing so fast, he thought they might burst. You hacked our navigation computers? Hacked is such an ugly word, Commander. We prefer to think of it as aggressive information sharing. After all, you were sharing our information with your computers. We simply returned the favor. The terrible truth was beginning to dawn on the alien crew. While they had been marveling at the human ship's weapons and technology, the humans had been quietly stealing every piece of classified information in their databases. They had been so focused on studying their enemy that they hadn't realized their enemy was studying them back. Speaking of information sharing, Morrison continued, we've been quite impressed with your Confederation's technology. Your ships are well designed, your crews are professional, and your government seems reasonably stable. These are all excellent qualities in potential allies. Allies? Vexthul asked weakly. Of course. Humanity has always believed in the value of friendship and cooperation. We would very much like to establish diplomatic relations with your Confederation. Chief Engineer Ryan Kelly was monitoring 17 other human ships as they began dropping their stealth systems throughout the asteroid field. One by one, massive warships were becoming visible to alien sensors, each one as heavily armed and advanced as the Thunder Bay. Sir, Kelly reported to Morrison, the rest of the fleet is coming online. Should I signal them to maintain positions? 4. Now, Morrison replied. Let's see how our new friends react to meeting the neighbors. On the Silent Wind, alarm klaxons began blaring as the ship's sensors detected one human warship after another, materializing out of empty space. Ships that had been invisible moments before were suddenly everywhere, surrounding the alien vessel, in a perfect sphere of overwhelming firepower. Sir, Kethrin called out, his voice barely controlled panic. I count 18 human ships. No, 21. They keep appearing out of nowhere. Navigation Officer Amy Chen was coordinating the reveal. With military precision, each human ship dropped its stealth at precisely calculated intervals, designed to create maximum psychological impact without appearing overly threatening. It was a delicate balance between showing strength and avoiding outright intimidation. Final. Count 24 ships, she reported to Morrison, all maintaining safe distances and non-aggressive postures. Morrison nodded approvingly. Perfect. Communications, please inform Commander Vexthul that he's now meeting representatives of the 5th Fleet, Terran Defense Force. Kate Davis opened the channel again. Commander Vexthul, you are now in the presence of 24 ships of the United Earth 5th Fleet. Please do not be alarmed. We mean you no harm. Vexthul stared at his instruments in disbelief. 24 ships, each one capable of destroying his vessel with ease, had been hidden in this system waiting for him. The trap had been planned and executed with precision that spoke of military thinking far beyond anything in his experience. How long have you been waiting for us? He asked. Morrison's answer was chilling in its casual tone. 3 weeks, 2 days, 16 hours. We've been tracking your patrol routes for some time, Commander. We knew you would eventually come through this system. You've been watching us? Commander, we've been watching everyone. Humanity takes a very active interest in our galactic neighbors. We believe in being prepared. Weapons Officer Brad Williams was running final checks on the fleet's targeting systems. Every alien ship within 50 light-years was now painted with multiple target locks from different human vessels. The aliens didn't know it yet, but if they tried to call for help, they would discover that help was already being watched by human ships. Sir, Williams reported, all fleet weapons are online and ready. We have full tactical superiority throughout this system. Noted, Morrison replied. But remember, we're here to make friends, not enemies. The irony was perfect. Humanity's version of friendship apparently began with overwhelming military superiority and ended with polite requests for cooperation. Morrison walked closer to the main screen, where the image of the alien ship filled the display. Commander Vexthul, humanity would like to formally request a meeting with representatives of your confederation. We have much to discuss. Such as? Vexthul asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Morrison smiled, and somehow that smile was the most terrifying thing the aliens had seen yet. Such as humanity's application for membership in your galactic confederation. We're very eager to join your community of civilized species. The silence that followed Morrison's words stretched across space like a physical thing. Commander Vexthul stared at his instruments, watching 24 human warships maintain perfect formation around his single scout vessel. Each ship was a masterpiece of military engineering, and together they represented more firepower than most species possessed in their entire navies. Membership? Vexthul finally managed to ask. You want to join the Confederation? Morrison's voice remained pleasant and conversational. Absolutely, Commander. Humanity believes strongly in galactic cooperation. We think we have quite a lot to offer your alliance. Such as? Well, for starters, we're excellent at solving problems. Take piracy, for example. I understand the Confederation has ongoing issues with raiders in the Outer Rim territories. Vexthul nodded slowly. Piracy had been a constant problem for decades. Confederation ships were often attacked by raiders who disappeared into the vast emptiness between systems. How would humanity solve this problem? The alien commander asked. Morrison smiled. Very simple, Commander. We would eliminate piracy completely within 6 months of joining your confederation. That's impossible. We've been fighting pirates for 50 years. You've been fighting them with Confederation methods, Commander. Humanity approaches the problem differently. We don't just hunt pirates, we make piracy extinct. On the Thunder Bay, Strategic Operations Officer Nick Foster was monitoring communications traffic across 17 star systems. Human intelligence networks had been watching pirate activities for months, learning their patterns, tracking their bases, and preparing comprehensive elimination strategies. Sir, Foster reported to Morrison through the neural link, we have confirmed locations on 43 pirate bases and full tactical data on their fleet movements. We could eliminate 90% of pirate activity in this sector within 2 weeks. Morrison nodded mentally. Humanity didn't just wage war, they solved military problems with the thoroughness of scientists conducting experiments. But that's just one example. Morrison continued speaking to the aliens. We could also help with your border disputes, territorial conflicts, and resource allocation problems. Humanity is very good at bringing stability to troubled regions. Vexthul felt a chill run down his spine. The way Morrison said bringing stability made it sound less like peacekeeping and more like conquest. And what would humanity want in return for this help? Very little, Commander. Just a seat at the table, a voice in Confederation decisions, the right to establish trade relationships and defensive agreements with member species. It sounded reasonable, even generous. But Vexthul had seen enough of human military capabilities to understand what was really being offered. Humanity wasn't asking to join the Confederation as equals. They were offering to take it over and run it properly. Suddenly, space around. The silent wind filled with new contacts. Vexthul watched in growing horror as his sensors detected ship after ship dropping out of hyperspace. Not human ships this time, but Confederation vessels responding to the emergency beacon his crew had secretly activated. "Sir," his navigation officer called out. "Confederation 4th Fleet is arriving. 12 ships, led by Admiral Korthak aboard. The dreadnought Stellar Pride." Morrison's voice came over the communication channel, still pleasant but now carrying a hint of disappointment. "Commander, that was unwise. We specifically asked you not to call for reinforcements." "How did you know we sent a signal?" Vexthul asked. "Commander, we've been monitoring all communication frequencies since you arrived. We knew about your distress beacon before your own fleet received it." On the Thunder Bay, communications officer Kate Davis was tracking the incoming Confederation ships with professional interest. The aliens had responded exactly as human intelligence had predicted they would. Every move, every decision, every tactical choice had been anticipated and planned for. "Sir," Davis reported to Morrison, "Admiral Korthak is demanding our immediate surrender. He's also asking why we haven't destroyed the Silent Wind yet." Morrison chuckled. "Interesting assumption. Please inform the Admiral that humanity doesn't destroy ships for the crime of curiosity. We're not barbarians." The Confederation fleet took up positions around the human ships, trying to establish some kind of tactical advantage. But even Vexthul could see it was hopeless. 12 Confederation ships against 24 human vessels was bad enough, but the real problem was that humanity had already demonstrated they could see through Confederation stealth, hack Confederation computers, and predict Confederation tactics. Admiral Korthak's voice came across the communication channel, deep and commanding. "Human ships, you are trespassing in Confederation space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Morrison's reply was calm and respectful. "Admiral Korthak, representing the Terran Defense Force. It's an honor to meet you, sir. Read your tactical manuals. Very impressive work, particularly your strategies for fleet coordination." There was a pause. "You've read our tactical manuals?" "Oh yes, Admiral, all of them. We've studied Confederation military doctrine quite thoroughly. We particularly admired your victory at the Battle of Proxima 7. The way you used asteroid fields to mask your approach was brilliant." Admiral Korthak was clearly thrown off balance by this casual discussion of classified military information. "How do you know about Proxima 7? That battle was classified." "Admiral, humanity makes it our business to understand our neighbors. We've been studying the Confederation for quite some time. We know about your ship designs, your crew training methods, your supply lines, your defensive strategies, and your command structure." The alien admiral was beginning to understand what Commander Vexthul had already figured out. Humanity hadn't just stumbled into this first contact. They had been planning it for months, possibly years. Aboard the Thunder Bay, Admiral Susan White materialized on the bridge via holographic projection. As commander of the entire 5th Fleet, she had been monitoring the situation from her flagship, the USS Retribution, positioned just outside the system. "Morrison, excellent work," she said. "Are our guests ready for the final presentation?" "I believe so, Admiral. They seem appropriately impressed with our capabilities." Admiral White nodded and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her voice went out on all frequencies, in all languages, to every ship in the system. "Attention, Confederation vessels. I am Admiral Susan White, commanding the United Earth 5th Fleet. On behalf of humanity, I formally request an audience with the Galactic Confederation Council. Admiral Korthak's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. For what purpose? To discuss humanity's application for membership in your alliance, Admiral. We believe we have much to offer the galactic community. And if we refuse? Admiral White's voice remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath the politeness. Admiral, I hope that won't be necessary. Humanity much prefers cooperation to conflict. However, I should mention that the Fifth Fleet is just one of 12 human fleets currently positioned throughout Confederation space. The words hit like a bomb. Vexthul checked his instruments frantically, but he already knew what he would find. Human ships were appearing on sensors all across the galaxy. Dozens of them, hundreds of them. They had been there all along, invisible and waiting. How many ships? Admiral Korthak asked quietly. Enough, Admiral. More than enough. Morrison stepped forward again, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Admiral Commanders, we're not here to conquer anyone. We're here to join the galactic community. But we want to join as equals with full voting rights and equal representation. And if we say no? Morrison smiled, and that smile contained the promise of things too terrible to imagine. Admiral, I don't think you'll say no. I think you'll say yes, and then you'll help us write new policies for dealing with piracy, territorial disputes, and threats to galactic peace. I think you'll discover that having humanity as an ally is far preferable to having us as anything else. Admiral Korthak was silent for a long moment. Finally, his voice came across the channel, defeated and resigned. I'll contact the Confederation Council. Excellent, Morrison replied. We look forward to a long and productive relationship. As the human ships began to power down their weapons, Vexthul realized that history had just changed forever. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy through force. They had conquered it through the simple expedient of making conquest unnecessary. The galaxy now belonged to humanity, and they had been polite enough to ask permission first. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the EDS Nightfall and watched the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship moved through space without making a sound, just like all ships did in the emptiness between worlds. But this ship was different from every other vessel that had ever been built. This ship could do things that would make the rulers of the galaxy wake up screaming from their sleep. For 50 years, humanity had been nothing more than a small, annoying bug to the great powers of the galaxy. The Galactic Council ruled over 3,000 worlds and controlled trade routes that stretched across the entire known universe. When human ships first appeared at their borders, the alien races laughed and pointed at the crude metal boxes that humans called starships. The Council gave humanity one small mining colony on the edge of nowhere and then forgot they existed. The aliens thought humans were stupid and weak. They were wrong about both things. Jake looked at the control panels around him and smiled. Every button and screen on this bridge represented technology that the galaxy had never seen before. While the Council races spent thousands of years making their energy shields a little bit stronger and their plasma weapons a little bit more powerful, humans had gone in a completely different direction. They had learned to control dark matter itself. Dr. Ryan Clark sat at his station and watched numbers scroll across his screens. The dark matter containment systems were working perfectly. The ship existed in normal space, but also existed somewhere else at the same time. The aliens had sensors that could detect anything that moved through regular space, but they could not see the Nightfall even if it was sitting right next to them. Admiral Lisa Kane appeared on the communication screen from Earth Central Command. Her face looked serious and determined. She had spent 20 years planning for this moment, 20 years of secret construction and hidden research facilities. 20 years of letting the galaxy think that humans were harmless farmers and miners who barely knew how to fix their own ships. The authorization code came through the communication system. The test was approved. Today, they would find out if all those years of work had been worth it. Today, the galaxy would learn that underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake they had ever made. The target was a group of Vorthon pirates who had been attacking human cargo ships for the past 6 months. The Vorthans were large green creatures with 4 arms and bad attitudes. They thought humans were easy prey because human ships seemed slow and poorly armed. The Galactic Council knew about the pirate attacks but did nothing to stop them. Human lives were not important enough to waste Council resources. Commander Alex Turner sat at the weapons control station and checked his systems one more time. The dark matter torpedoes were loaded and ready. Each torpedo was a small piece of impossibility wrapped in human engineering. They could pass through energy shields like those shields were made of air. They could appear inside enemy ships without having to break through the hull first. The Vorthans had never seen anything like them because nothing like them had ever existed before. Jake watched the long-range sensors as 12 Vorthan ships moved toward their position. The pirates were confident and careless. They had destroyed hundreds of human cargo vessels over the years and never lost a single ship in return. They thought this would be just another easy target. The Vorthans would never see the nightfall coming. Their most advanced scanners could not detect dark matter signatures. To them, space looked completely empty right up until the moment the human ship opened fire. It was like being attacked by invisible ghosts who could strike from anywhere and disappear without leaving a trace. Dr. Clark monitored the power systems as the ship prepared for combat. The dark matter reactor was running at optimal levels. The ASU weapon systems were charged and ready. The stealth systems were functioning perfectly. Every piece of technology on this ship represented a breakthrough that would have taken the Council races centuries to achieve, if they could achieve it at all. The beautiful thing about dark matter technology was that it required a special kind of thinking. It required the ability to imagine things that seemed impossible, and then figure out how to make them real. Humans were very good at that kind of thinking. The alien races were not. Jake gave the order to move to attack position. The nightfall slid through space like a shadow, completely invisible to the approaching pirates. The Vorthans continued on their course, talking and laughing on their communication channels about how they were going to split up the cargo from their next human victim. Admiral Kane watched the tactical display from her command center on Earth. This was the moment that would change everything. For too long, humanity had been forced to accept whatever scraps the galaxy was willing to give them. Human ships had been destroyed, human colonies had been raided, and human lives had been lost while the great powers of the universe looked the other way. That time was ending today. The Vorthan fleet spread out into attack formation as they approached what they thought was empty space. Their weapons were powered up and their shields were activated. They were ready for a fight against cargo haulers and mining ships. They were not ready for the EDS nightfall. Colonel Maria Santos waited in the tactical center aboard the ship, watching as her carefully planned operation moved toward its climax. She had studied every piece of intelligence about Vorthan ships and weapons. She knew exactly how they would react when the impossible started happening around them. Fear and confusion would be their enemies long before the human weapons reached their hulls. The moment had arrived. Jake looked around his bridge one more time and saw the faces of his crew. They were nervous but determined. They knew they were about to make history. They knew they were about to show the galaxy that humanity was done being pushed around. The order came through the communication system from Admiral Kane. The test was authorized. The demonstration could begin. Jake Morrison took a deep breath and spoke the words that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Fire all weapons. The dark matter torpedoes left the EDS nightfall without making any sound or light that the Vorthan pirates could detect. The weapons moved through space like invisible death, following paths that existed in both normal space and the dark matter realm at the same time. Commander Alex Turner watched his targeting systems track each torpedo as they approached their targets. The first torpedo reached the lead Vorthan ship and did something that should have been impossible. It passed through the energy shields like they were not even there. The purple energy barriers that protected the pirate vessel meant nothing to a weapon that existed partially outside normal physics. The torpedo materialized inside the ship's engine room and exploded with enough force to tear the vessel apart from the inside. Captain Vex of the Vorthon Raiders saw his flagship disappear in a ball of fire and could not understand what had happened. His sensors showed no enemy ships anywhere in the area. His weapons officers reported no incoming missiles or energy beams. One moment his lead ship was there, and the next moment it was spreading debris across space. The second and third torpedoes struck two more Vorthan ships at exactly the same time. Both vessels exploded from within, their hulls bursting outward as internal explosions ripped through their vital systems. The remaining 9 pirate ships began turning in all directions, trying to find an enemy that their scanners insisted was not there. Jake Morrison watched the battle from the bridge of the Nightfall with calm satisfaction. The human ship remained completely invisible to the panicking pirates. The Vorthan sensors were designed to detect energy signatures, metal hulls, and electromagnetic radiation. They could not see dark matter containment fields or ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Dr. Ryan Clark monitored the weapon systems as they prepared to fire again. The dark matter torpedoes were reloading automatically, drawing power from the ship's incredible reactor. Each weapon cost more to build than an entire Vorthan ship, but the results spoke for themselves. 3 enemy vessels had been destroyed in less than 30 seconds, and the pirates still had no idea where the attack was coming from. The Vorthan pirates began firing their weapons randomly into empty space, hoping to hit whatever was killing their ships. Plasma bolts and energy beams shot out in every direction, lighting up the darkness with bright flashes of destructive power. None of their shots came anywhere close to the Nightfall because they could not see it to aim at it. Commander Alex Turner launched the second wave of torpedoes. 6 more weapons streaked toward their targets, invisible and unstoppable. The Vorthan ships tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The dark matter torpedoes could track their targets across vast distances and would not stop until they found their mark. Captain Vex screamed orders at his weapons crews and demanded answers from his science officers. How could enemy ships be attacking them without appearing on any sensors? How could weapons penetrate their shields without triggering any defensive systems? His crew had no answers because nothing in their experience had prepared them for this kind of warfare. The next 6 Vorthan ships died just like the first 3. The torpedoes appeared inside their hulls and exploded with devastating results. Metal bulkheads twisted and melted, atmosphere vented into space, and electrical systems overloaded in showers of sparks. The pirates had been reduced from 12 ships to 3 in less than 2 minutes. Dr. Clark received a priority message from Admiral Kane on Earth. The test was proceeding exactly as planned. The dark matter technology was performing better than even the most optimistic projections had predicted. The weapon systems were stable, the stealth capabilities were perfect, and the enemy was completely helpless against attacks they could not see or understand. The 3 surviving Vorthan ships tried to escape by jumping to faster than light speed, but Jake Morrison was not going to let them go. Those ships would return to their bases and tell other pirates about the mysterious attack. The story would spread through the criminal networks and eventually reach the ears of the Galactic Council. That was exactly what humanity wanted. The final 3 torpedoes caught the fleeing Vorthan ships just as they were entering hyperspace. The weapons followed their targets into the faster-than-light realm and exploded inside the enemy hulls while they were between dimensions. The resulting destruction was spectacular, creating brief tears in space itself that flashed like lightning before closing again. Colonel Maria Santos reviewed the battle data as the last pieces of Vorthan debris drifted away into the void. 12 enemy ships had been destroyed in under 5 minutes. The human vessel had taken no damage and used less than 10% of its available ammunition. The Nightfall was ready to fight again immediately if needed. The communication systems aboard. The Nightfall intercepted emergency broadcasts from other pirate groups in the area. Word of the impossible battle was already spreading. Ship captains who had never shown fear of anything were talking about ghost ships and invisible enemies. The criminal organizations that had terrorized human shipping for decades were suddenly afraid. Jake Morrison gave the order to move to the next target area. 3 more dark matter warships were already in position around the galaxy, ready to begin their own operations. The EDS Phantom would strike at a slave-trading convoy near the Centauri system. The EDS Voidwalker would eliminate a group of raiders who had been attacking medical supply ships. The EDS Shadow Strike would destroy a fleet of mercenaries who worked for corrupt council officials. Admiral Kane watched the tactical reports from Earth with growing excitement. The plan was working perfectly. For too long, the galaxy had ignored human suffering because they thought humans were too weak to fight back. Now they would learn that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Dr. Ryan Clark began preparing the stealth systems for departure. The Nightfall would vanish from this location and appear somewhere else, without leaving any trace of where it had gone. The pirates who investigated this area would find only debris and radiation signatures that made no sense according to known physics. The age of human weakness was ending. The galaxy was about to discover that the quiet farmers and miners from Earth had become the most dangerous military force in known space. The Vorthon pirates had been just the beginning. Soon, every criminal organization and corrupt official in the galaxy would learn to fear the invisible ships that struck without warning and disappeared without trace. The revolution had begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began at dawn on Centris Prime, the capital world that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Representatives from every major species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their faces showing worry and confusion that had not been seen in centuries. The mighty powers that controlled trade routes and commanded vast fleets were experiencing something they had almost forgotten existed: fear. Ambassador Helen Wright sat in the small human delegation booth and watched the chaos unfold around her. The other species were arguing loudly, demanding explanations for events that made no sense according to everything they thought they knew about warfare and technology. She kept her face calm and professional, even though she knew exactly what was causing their panic. Chancellor Vex of the Altarian Empire stood at the central podium and slammed his six-fingered hand down on the speaking platform. His purple skin had turned almost black with rage as he described the destruction of 3 Altarian border fleets in the past week. Each fleet had been attacked by enemies that could not be detected, could not be tracked, and could not be fought using any known methods. The Zephyrian delegate took the floor next and spoke in a voice that shook with barely controlled terror. The Zephyrians had mastered energy manipulation over 1,000 years ago and believed their weapons were the most advanced in the galaxy. Now their most powerful energy beams were passing harmlessly through empty space while invisible enemies destroyed their ships from within. Captain Steve Rogers commanded the EDS Nightfall as it moved silently through the heart of Council space, completely undetected despite being surrounded by the most sophisticated sensor networks ever built. The ship drifted past military installations and government facilities like a ghost, recording everything and transmitting the intelligence back to Earth through communication channels that existed in dark matter space. The Council races had spent millennia perfecting their technologies along predictable paths. Better shields meant stronger energy barriers. Better weapons meant more powerful plasma cannons. Better sensors meant wider detection ranges for known forms of matter and energy. None of them had ever imagined that an entire parallel realm of physics existed right alongside their normal universe. Dr. Emma Foster analyzed the intercepted communications from her position in the ship's intelligence center. The alien powers were terrified because they faced an enemy whose capabilities they could not understand, copy, or counter. Every report from the field described the same impossible events: ships being destroyed by weapons that passed through their defenses, fleets being attacked by enemies that sensors insisted were not there. The hegemony representative spoke next, his insect-like features clicking with anxiety as he described the loss of an entire patrol squadron near the Rigel system. The ships had been found drifting in space with their hulls torn open from the inside, but there were no energy signatures or debris patterns that matched any known weapon type. It was as if the ships had been destroyed by invisible monsters. Ambassador Wright received a coded message through her personal communication device. Admiral Kane was reporting that Phase 2 of the operation was proceeding exactly as planned. 20 human dark matter warships were now operating throughout Council space, striking carefully selected targets and vanishing without trace. The psychological impact was even greater than the military damage. The Corvalian trade minister stood up and demanded immediate action. His species controlled most of the galaxy's commercial shipping, and their profits were dropping rapidly as cargo haulers refused to travel without massive military escorts. Insurance companies were canceling policies for routes where the mysterious attacks had occurred. The galactic economy was beginning to suffer as fear spread through the trading networks. Captain Rogers watched his tactical display as a Council patrol fleet passed within 50 kilometers of his position. The alien ships were running intensive sensor sweeps, desperately searching for any sign of the invisible enemies that had been terrorizing their forces. Their scanners were powerful enough to detect a single metal bolt floating in space, but they could not see the massive human warship that was close enough to read their hull markings. The debate in the council chambers grew more heated as representatives accused each other of hiding secret weapons or making deals with unknown alien powers. The Vorthans claimed that humans were somehow responsible, but they had no evidence beyond the fact that most attacks seemed to target ships that had been preying on human colonies. The other species dismissed this theory because everyone knew that humans barely had enough technology to keep their cargo ships running. Dr. Foster intercepted a priority communication between the Council's top military commanders. They were planning to deploy their combined fleets in a massive search operation, hoping to find and destroy the mysterious enemy ships through sheer numbers. The alien commanders had no idea that human vessels could observe their most secret planning sessions while remaining completely invisible. The Galactic Council had ruled the universe for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be helpless. Their ancestors had fought wars of conquest and expansion, but the current generation had only known peace and prosperity. They were not prepared for an enemy that could strike from anywhere and disappear without leaving any clues about their identity or location. Ambassador Wright stood up and requested permission to address the assembly. The chamber fell silent as she walked to the speaking platform with calm dignity. She had been waiting for this moment for months, and now it was time to plant the seeds that would grow into full-scale panic. She spoke in a clear voice that carried to every corner of the Great Hall. Humanity was deeply concerned about the recent attacks on peaceful shipping, she said. Earth wanted to offer assistance in tracking down these mysterious raiders. Perhaps human ships could help patrol the trade routes, since they seemed to be ignored by whatever force was destroying Council fleets. The offer was met with nervous laughter from some delegates and angry protests from others. The idea that primitive humans could help protect advanced alien civilizations seemed ridiculous. But Ambassador Wright noticed that several representatives were looking at her with new suspicion, as if they were beginning to wonder if the quiet species from Earth might know more than they were admitting. Admiral Kane watched the council session through intercepted video feeds and smiled with satisfaction. The galaxy's rulers were finally beginning to understand that their age of dominance was ending. Soon they would face a choice between negotiation and total defeat, and humanity would be ready for either option. The largest military fleet in galactic history assembled at the Nexus Point, where 12 major trade routes crossed paths through a region of space that had seen peace for over 1,000 years. 500 warships from 7 different council species formed battle lines that stretched across 3 entire star systems. The combined armada represented the full military might of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy since before humans had learned to make fire. Admiral Korath of the Hegemony commanded the united forces from his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The massive vessel was 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Around him, the greatest warriors and most advanced technologies in known space waited for an enemy that might already be among them without anyone knowing it. Captain Pete Johnson aboard the EDS Nightfall watched the enemy preparations from a position that should have been impossible to achieve. His ship hung motionless just 5 kilometers from the Hegemony flagship, close enough to see individual aliens moving past the viewing ports. The dark matter stealth systems made the human vessel completely invisible to every sensor and detection method the Council forces possessed. The alien fleet had been waiting for 3 standard days, their nerves growing more frayed with each passing hour. Their sensors swept constantly through space, searching for any sign of the mysterious enemy ships that had been terrorizing their forces for months. Scanner operators reported phantom contacts that vanished when investigated, technical malfunctions that seemed to suggest unknown interference, and energy readings that made no sense according to established physics. Lieutenant Sarah Davis monitored enemy communications from her station aboard the Nightfall and listened to the growing panic in alien voices. Ship captains were reporting strange dreams and unexplained equipment failures. Crew members claimed to see shadows moving in empty corridors and hear sounds that had no source. The psychological pressure of fighting an invisible enemy was destroying morale faster than any weapon could. Admiral Korath tried to maintain discipline among his forces, but he could feel control slipping away with each hour that passed. His officers demanded action, his crews whispered about supernatural enemies, and his allies questioned whether this massive deployment was worth the cost. The greatest military commander in hegemony history was watching his perfect formation slowly fall apart from fear alone. Around the main fleet, 19 other human dark matter warships maintained their positions like predators waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The EDS Phantom drifted silently among the Altarian battle group, recording their weapon configurations and shield frequencies. The EDS Voidwalker positioned itself inside the Zephyrian formation, close enough to overhear conversations on their bridge decks. The EDS's Shadow Strike floated near the Council command vessel, monitoring every strategic decision in real time. The waiting was part of Admiral Kane's strategy. She had studied the psychology of every major galactic species and knew that fear of the unknown was more powerful than direct assault. The Council fleet was destroying itself from within, discipline breaking down as crews realized they might be fighting ghosts that could appear anywhere at any time. Dr. Ryan Clark watched his instruments as the dark matter containment systems prepared for the largest coordinated attack in human history. 20 ships would strike simultaneously across a battle zone that covered multiple star systems. Each vessel would target specific enemy formations while remaining completely invisible to retaliation. The mathematics of the assault were elegant, in their simplicity, maximum damage with zero risk. The Council forces had arranged themselves in classic defensive formations that had been perfected over centuries of conventional warfare. Their heavy battleships formed the center line, supported by fast cruisers and protected by swarms of fighter craft. Energy shield generators created overlapping barriers that could stop any known weapon. It was a beautiful example of military engineering that would be completely useless against enemies who could appear inside their defenses. Commander Alex Turner prepared his weapon systems as the final authorization arrived from Earth Central Command. The dark matter torpedoes were loaded and ready, each one capable of materializing inside enemy hulls without triggering any defensive systems. The Council fleet had no protection against weapons that existed partially outside normal space-time. Admiral Korath received reports of increasing equipment malfunctions throughout his fleet. Navigation systems were showing impossible readings, communication arrays were picking up signals from empty space, and sensor operators swore they could detect ships that vanished whenever they tried to focus on them. The alien commander was beginning to suspect that his enemies were already among his forces, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. The attack began at exactly the same moment across all 3 star systems. 20 human ships materialized simultaneously throughout the Council formation, appearing inside their protective barriers as if they had been there all along. The dark matter vessels became visible for just long enough to launch their weapons, before fading back into invisibility. The first wave of torpedoes struck the enemy flagship and 6 heavy battleships at the same instant. The weapons passed through energy shields like they were made of empty air and exploded inside the enemy hulls with devastating force. The Eternal Dominion, pride of the hegemony fleet, broke apart in a ball of fire that could be seen from neighboring star systems. Panic spread through the Council forces as their most powerful ships began exploding from within. Weapons officers fired frantically at targets they could not see, often hitting their own allies in the confusion. Fighter pilots ejected from their craft, rather than face invisible enemies who could destroy them without warning. The perfect military formation dissolved into chaos in less than 5 minutes. Captain Johnson watched the destruction with professional satisfaction as his ship moved through the enemy fleet like a ghost among the living. The Council forces were shooting at shadows while human weapons struck with surgical precision. Every torpedo found its target, every shot counted, and every enemy vessel that tried to escape was hunted down by invisible predators. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes from start to finish. When the shooting finally stopped, the greatest fleet in galactic history had simply ceased to exist. 500 warships had been reduced to drifting debris and expanding clouds of gas. Not a single human vessel had taken damage, or even been detected by enemy sensors. The galaxy fell silent as news of the impossible defeat spread through communication networks. The age of council dominance was over, and everyone knew it. 6 months after the Battle of Nexus Point, the formal surrender ceremony took place aboard the EDS Nightfall, in a room that had witnessed the planning of humanity's rise to galactic power. Representatives from every major council species sat around a conference table made of earth oak, their proud faces showing the humility that comes only from complete defeat. The document they signed would reshape the political structure of the entire known universe. Ambassador Helen Wright accepted the surrender with the same calm diplomacy she had shown throughout the crisis, as if humanity had always expected this outcome. The terms were surprisingly moderate for a species that had just achieved total military victory. Humanity had no interest in conquering alien worlds or enslaving other species. What they demanded was respect, fair treatment, and an end to the exploitation that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. The surrender document established humanity as the supreme military authority in galactic space, but it also created a new system of governance based on cooperation rather than domination. The old council would continue to exist, but its decisions would be subject to human approval. Trade routes would remain open to all species, but pirates and slavers would face immediate destruction by the dark matter fleet. Captain Jake Morrison found himself promoted to Fleet Admiral, commanding a growing force of invisible warships as more species requested human protection from their former oppressors. The dark matter technology remained exclusively human, despite countless attempts at espionage and reverse engineering. Every alien scientist who studied the captured debris from human weapons found only twisted metal and strange energy signatures that made no sense according to known physics. The secret of dark matter manipulation required a specific type of thinking that seemed to exist only in human minds. It required the ability to imagine things that appeared impossible, and then find ways to make them real. Humans were naturally good at this kind of creative problem-solving, while alien species had spent thousands of years perfecting existing technologies rather than inventing completely new ones. Dr. Ryan Clark established the first Galactic Research Institute on Earth, where carefully selected alien scientists could work alongside human researchers to develop new technologies for peaceful purposes. The knowledge sharing was voluntary and limited, but it represented a new era of cooperation between species that had been enemies for generations. The Institute became a symbol of humanity's commitment to building a better galaxy rather than simply ruling through fear. The transformation was remarkable to observe. Within a year of the surrender, piracy had virtually disappeared from the major trade routes. Slave markets that had operated openly for centuries were shut down by human peacekeeping forces. Corrupt officials who had grown rich by exploiting weaker species found themselves facing dark matter warships that appeared without warning to deliver justice. Admiral Lisa Kane stood in her office overlooking the bustling spaceport that had grown around Earth's capital city, and watched ships from dozens of worlds arriving and departing in peaceful commerce. The sight still amazed her sometimes. For 50 years, humanity had been treated as a minor nuisance by the galactic powers. Now those same powers sent their finest diplomats to Earth seeking trade agreements and mutual defense treaties. The change had not come without resistance. Some alien factions tried to develop new weapons that could counter dark matter technology, but their efforts always failed. The human advantage was not just technological but conceptual. Dark matter manipulation required an understanding of physics that went beyond traditional scientific thinking, and humans seemed to possess an intuitive grasp of concepts that confounded even the most brilliant alien minds. Captain Steve Rogers commanded routine patrols through former council space, his ship moving unseen among the civilian traffic that flowed between worlds. The dark matter fleet had become the galaxy's police force, appearing wherever they were needed to maintain peace and order. The mere knowledge that invisible human ships might be watching was enough to prevent most criminal activity. The economic benefits of peace were enormous. Trade flourished as cargo ships no longer needed expensive military escorts to protect them from pirates. Scientific cooperation between species accelerated as researchers shared knowledge without fear of military exploitation. Art and culture began to spread freely through communication networks that had once carried only propaganda and threats. Dr. Emma Foster analyzed the social changes taking place across the galaxy and marveled at how quickly civilizations could adapt when the threat of violence was removed. Species that had been enemies for millennia began working together on projects that benefited everyone. The galaxy was discovering that cooperation was more profitable than conquest. The human approach to galactic governance was unlike anything that had existed before. Instead of demanding tribute or forcing alien species to adopt human customs, Earth encouraged diversity and local self-government. Human peacekeepers intervened only when weaker species were being oppressed or when trade disputes threatened to escalate into violence. Ambassador Wright found herself leading a new kind of diplomatic corps that focused on mediation and problem-solving rather than threats and ultimatums. The galaxy was learning that humanity preferred to resolve conflicts through negotiation, backed by overwhelming force, rather than through conquest and occupation. It was a more complex approach than simple military rule, but it created lasting stability instead of temporary submission. The dark matter fleet continued to grow as human shipyards produced new vessels with capabilities that improved with each generation. The technology was evolving rapidly as human engineers discovered new applications for dark matter manipulation. Ships could now travel faster than ever before, communicate across vast distances instantly, and defend themselves against any conceivable attack. Colonel Maria Santos established training academies where human officers learned to work with alien allies in joint peacekeeping operations. The programs were designed to build trust and understanding between species while maintaining human military superiority. Alien officers who completed the training became valuable ambassadors for the new galactic order in their home systems. Thizar galaxy was no longer silent with fear, but with the respectful quiet of a universe that had found its guardians. Humanity had taken the stage not through conquest but through the demonstration that impossible was just another word for undiscovered. The age of human galactic stewardship had begun, and even the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter in the growing light of peace. The revolution was complete, and the future belonged to all species working together under the protection of Earth's invisible fleet.